the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee. I'm Charles Purcell with a special bonus edition of The Log. Of course, the news of the verdict in the Orange Menace hush money trial. News came just hours after we dropped our last episode, and literally just minutes before it was set to air on the radio side. So, as I promised, if the news came down right away, I'd give us a bonus episode. I wouldn't wait to talk about it till next week. So here it is. All right, thoughts on this. A lot of people are saying, well, I shouldn't use that expression. That's one of his favorites. A lot of people are saying, I'm hearing from a lot of the commentators here that this is a solemn occasion, that it's a sad day, you know. Regardless of your affiliation, your partisanship, it's just a sad day. No, it's not. It's not. This is a very happy day. Okay? Dance in the streets. Dance in the streets. There's no solemnity about this. Nope, I'm not buying that at all. I don't agree. If you feel that way, okay, but I don't. Nope. And he needs to be mocked and shunned and ridiculed. The late night shows have to just hammer him relentlessly. I mean, he needs to be humiliated, made an example of. This is a happy, joyous time. Take joy. Let's celebrate the rule of law. Celebrate that our dying, fragile democracy is refusing to gasp its last breath. It's actually got a little bit of life left in it. It actually renewed my faith. This has renewed my faith that we still maybe have a chance at some semblance of democracy in this country. So, no, this is not a solemn, sad occasion. This is a shout it from the rooftops, shout it loud, lock him up, dance in the streets kind of a day. That's the way I see it. Politically, people want to talk about how, of course, obviously it's important. You and I have talked about it. How is it going to impact the election? We still don't know. It's so hard to tell. It's those of us who try to provide some analysis and even, dare I say, predict. Boy, I'll tell you one thing for sure. It could have been so much worse, I think. I think a not guilty, which nobody really thought that was possible. But it was possible to have a partial verdict, like guilty on some counts, not guilty on others, and depending on how that weighed out, it could have been much worse. It could have a hung jury is what the Orange Menace was hoping for. That would have been terrible. So I think we really dodged a bullet, and this is why I was so excited when I heard the news, because I really believe it could have been much, much worse. If it turned out to be a hung jury, I think the Orange Menace could have used that, and his supporters could have used that to say, see, we're vindicated, we did nothing wrong, everything's great, vote for me, love me, love me. So, but now their idea is to convince their voters that he's a martyr and a political prisoner. So it still might be that bad. Maybe I'm second guessing myself as I speak. Maybe we didn't dodge a bullet. I don't know which would have been worse. I still tend to think it would have been worse, a hung jury, politically speaking. Just legally and for the sake of democracy, which I opened with, obviously this is a win. Politically, yet to find out. And they'll use it to fundraise. They already had. I've heard some numbers that just within a couple of hours of the verdict, they raised like $1 million. It was insane. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. I'm going to remain hopeful, anyway, that this is good news politically rather than bad news politically. All right, so where do we stand here? The remaining cases, of course, all the experts were saying this was the weakest case. It was the least important, the less serious. Although, yes, it did have to do with the election interference, but only kind of by technicality. They had to jump through some legal hoops to get it to that level. So it was kind of an odd case. A lot of people thought it shouldn't even been brought, but it was, and now that it's over, at least before appeals, that's a whole other story. Yeah, great. But again, all the experts saying this was actually the weakest case, or the least important, and that the others are far more important and legally are slam dunks by comparison. The Georgia fake electors scheme, which has been put on hold now because they challenged the DA, Fani Willis, for, oh God, that whole ridiculous thing about her boyfriend on the team, ridiculous. The Florida documents case, which, again, I'm not a lawyer, but everything I read tells me that's just an absolute slam dunk. That's put on hold indefinitely by Aileen Cannon. You know, the Republicans are so concerned about corrupt judges, they don't have a peep to say about Aileen Cannon, or the Supreme Court for that matter. And then finally, the federal case, the Jack Smith January 6th case, that's on hold, speaking of SCOTUS. That's on hold because of the Supreme Court agreeing to hear this ridiculous immunity argument, which should have been laughed out of court. They should have said, nope, slap it right back at him. But no, they took it knowing full well that it would delay. So, I don't know, maybe if we have time, I'll talk more about this later. I don't want to get into this right now. I do want to say, I want to look to the summer. Happy summer, everybody. Sentence date. Judge Merchan has designated July 11th as the date of sentencing. Exactly 4 days after that, the Repugs will meet right here in Milwaukee. I'm looking at Fiserv Forum right now. I'm looking out the window at Fiserv Forum where they will meet. Exactly 1 week after sentencing, on July 18th, the Orange Menace will be nominated as the GOP candidate for president. Amazing. A sentenced, convicted felon out on bail will be nominated as a major party presidential candidate. All right, let's talk about sentencing. But before we do, Milwaukee, my beloved Milwaukee, I look at your skyline every day. I'm looking at it right now as I talk to the world. You got to withdraw as RNC host. You cannot host this convention. It's just shameful. It's just absolutely shameful. Just withdraw. Don't bring these pigs, these Nazis, these fascists, because they're all supporting him. It's a complete MAGA party. There's no more GOP. There's no more grand old party. There's no GOP. It's MAGA, man. It's MAGA all the way. Just do the rebranding. Change the logo. Because you're not the GOP anymore. You're MAGA. It's the MAGA party. Milwaukee, withdraw as host. You can't do this. You just can't do it. All right, let's talk about sentencing. Again, sentenced on July 11th, but his lawyers, the Orange Menace lawyers, can negotiate the date of sentencing. They can actually negotiate that date away. We'll see if they can, or if the court will allow that. I don't know. There are no more legal arguments. They're like 100% political arguments now. Is it better for them to have the sentencing before or after the convention? I don't know. They'll have to figure all this out. But hopefully, it just, the sooner the better. Up to 4 years per count. There are 34 counts. Maximum 20 years total. So that's what he faces, and I think it's $5,000 per count, but, that's meaningless. There are lots of different ways it can go. There's jail time, there's probation, there's house arrest, there's community service. He could be picking up trash along the side of the highway. We'll see. Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg has to recommend a sentence. That's part of the procedure. He hasn't done that yet. We'll see what they're asking for. I've heard some reporting just this morning that they will ask for jail time. They're going to ask for a year, or maybe 6 months behind bars, 6 months house arrest, or combination. Again, that's just one report from one source this morning. I don't know how much truth there is to that. But here's what I really want to stress. Most commentators you're hearing, And if I serve any purpose today, I don't want to just repeat what other people are saying. If I serve any purpose, please don't listen to these commentators who are saying, oh, no prison. No. They're wrong. They're saying either he shouldn't get prison or they don't expect him to get prison. They're setting all these expectations. And thankfully, I think Judge Juan Merchan is above that. It's not like he's watching The View, all right, or he's watching Wolf Blitzer and being influenced by that. I really don't believe that. I think he's above it. I hope so. I really hope so. But yeah, these commentators are wrong. He shouldn't go to prison, or they don't think he'll go to prison. No. Here's what we've learned, because they've looked into this. The Orange Menace has been convicted of, this is a Class E felony, which is less serious than a Class A felony, right? A, B, C, D, E. So Class E felonies are the least serious. But they've looked into this, and apparently 10 to 30% of those who've been convicted on similar Class E felony crimes have gone to prison. 10 to 30%. So they say, well, it's not likely they will. But let's look at this. How does a judge decide on his sentencing? What does he look at? Well, let's check down the list here. The convicted felon here, in this case, has shown zero remorse. That's something you look for. Zero contrition. Been defiant throughout the process and continues to be defiant. Has lied blatantly and consistently throughout and continues to lie. Was literally disruptive in court, mumbling and moaning, and had to be admonished several times. He violated a gag order in contempt of court, violated a gag order 10 separate times. What else do judges look at when they're deciding on a sentence? Are they likely to reoffend? Oh my God, of course he'll reoffend. He's already reoffended. Remember, just a couple weeks ago, during a break in the trial on one of his Wednesdays, I guess, he committed a crime right there when he spoke with a group of big oil executives and promised them a quid pro quo. Give me $1 billion and I'll fix regulations for you and lower your taxes. You can't do that. It's a crime. It's the same thing he did, remember, during the Mueller probe. Back then, we kept expecting Mueller to come up with a report, but he couldn't do it because the guy kept committing crimes. He had to keep adding. He couldn't close up his investigation because the man kept committing crimes during the investigation itself. Remember after the first impeachment, when remember Susan Collins of Maine? I think he's learned his lesson. Come on. Remember that? Yeah, he learned his lesson. Good enough to get impeached a second time. So yes, he will reoffend, absolutely reoffend. What else do judges look at? Merchan is the one who decides on the sentence. Nobody else does. What else do they look at? They look at prior convictions. And you'll hear these ridiculous commentators, I don't know how they can say it with a straight face, that, oh, well, he's a first-time offender. He's not a first-time offender. He's been legally barred from running charities in New York because of the scam charities he's run, where he steals from poor children. He's been held personally liable, legally liable for financial fraud. He's been found legally liable, adjudicated, legally liable for sexual assault. What the judge called, he said, let's call it what it is. It's rape. Those are the words of the judge. Liable for rape. His organization, the Trump Organization, criminally guilty of tax fraud. He's been twice impeached, and the aforementioned Mueller report enumerated 10 indictable crimes. Now, we've been all over this, and Mueller didn't indict because of that stupid Justice Department memo that says, you can't do that with a sitting president. But he practically begged Congress to impeach the guy over the 2016 Russian interference of the election. He itemized 10 different indictable crimes. So has he been prior convictions? Come on. And now he's guilty by unanimous decision on 34 felony charges. So don't tell me this compares to some schmuck who has a Class E felony, 1 or 2 counts maybe, and he really is a first-time offender, and he hasn't, maybe he has remorse, he has contrition, he hasn't been defiant, he hasn't lied consistently, he hasn't been disruptive in court. That guy, yeah, no jail time. This is a slam dunk no-brainer. The guy has to go to jail. Absolutely. And he should go directly to jail right from his sentencing on July 11th. Right from that sentencing hearing, right to a jail cell. Put the cuffs on him and take him right to his cell that minute. And he can accept his party's nomination in absentia. The court can also say that he doesn't have to serve any sentence at all, whatever it is, until after all of his appeals are run dry. Don't do that. Judge Merchan, please, I'm begging you. There have to be consequences here. Whatever the sentence is, it has to start immediately on July 11th. This is crazy. All right, we have to talk about this. This, of course, is not a surprise, but it just once again confirms that the entire GOP is stained by this. The GOP is dead. MAGA lives. MAGA is the party now. The Republican Party is MAGA. They stand with him. They tell his lies, and they will nominate him as their candidate. I mean, is there any hope? Is there any hope for that party? I don't think so. I can't see it. It's a complete takeover. It's been for quite a while. We've been talking about this for quite a while. But what more of a final straw do you need to pull here? They're absolutely in lockstep. And in order to be in the party now, the litmus test, the badge to get in, you have to repeat the lies. You have to say it was a rigged trial. It was not a rigged trial. Not by any stretch of any imagination was this a rigged trial. You have to denigrate the courts. The courts are corrupt. You have to denigrate the jury system itself. As I said, maybe our last bastion of democracy in this country. To punch your ticket into this party, you have to not only agree, but you have to shout loudly to any microphone or camera within sight that this is a political persecution, rather than a legal prosecution. No, this is a political persecution. And not only that, it was directed by Joe Biden and his corrupt justice system and funded by George Soros, which, of course, we all know is an anti-Semitic dog whistle that's been around forever. We all know it. And how often do you hear Soros funded prior to all these statements? They keep using it over and over. So, yeah, so MAGA is, this is MAGA. The party is over. This is who they are. I mean, these lies about the rigged trial and the role of Joe Biden and the corrupt courts, these lies are equally outrageous. They're on a par with the rigged election lie. And they know it. They all know it. Even lies about the judge's family, which is particularly ironic given their defense of SCOTUS and their wives and their flags and their wives' flags and their participation in the January 6th riot. Their silence about Supreme Court bogus and blatantly partisan handling of the presidential immunity case I mentioned earlier. They didn't have to take that. They took it on purpose to delay Jack Smith's federal case on January 6th. They knew what they were doing. So they want to talk about corrupt courts and then not pretend they don't see that stuff? Come on. Aileen Cannon in Florida, completely slow-walking the documents case and then getting up on the bench a couple of weeks ago and said, oh, well, indefinite delay now. Every member of Congress takes this oath. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. So you take an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You don't take an oath to support and defend your fearless leader. The GOP is over. The MAGA party reigns, and it is fully 100% corrupt. The response, if you've seen any of the right-wing media sphere, my God, 100% lockstep. And I want to close with this. I alluded to it earlier. The last bastion of democracy, a jury trial. That's what the MAGA party is denigrating. Our best, maybe our last place where there's still democracy. And they're trashing it. I mean, think about it. Think about it for a second. Where is democracy? Where do you experience democracy in your life? It's not in our daily lives. It's not in our work lives, certainly, where the boss has all the power. Not much in the press, the news, the media sphere, and it's dominated by social media now. You know, there's some conscientious reporters out there. There's some, but yeah, I'm looking for, where do you experience democracy in your life? It's not even in most local or state governments, even down to the local school boards, because groups like the Heritage Foundation and their sort of satellite AstroTurf organizations like Moms for Liberty and all that, they've infiltrated local bodies of government. And the partisanship from the political class, and I keep saying this, I need to keep separating the political class from all of us, the great unwashed here. We're not nearly as divided as most people want to tell us we are. They're trying to divide us, and it's working. But we're not on a level with the political class, and I'm including local and state governments. Highly partisan, very little democracy going on. Just a lot of manipulation. Where do you find democracy? Not at public universities, where they've cracked down on student protests, right? A once great, honored patriotic tradition, a rite of passage for students. Protests generally are now met with militarized police. Speaking of police, even after the reckoning of 2020 and the murder of George Floyd, police forces are still or more militarized as ever and as unaccountable as ever. No jurisdiction that I've heard of has had any real reform, especially on qualified immunity, things like that. There's little to no democracy in Congress. That's just not working. That's broken. Many state Supreme Courts, and certainly the U.S. Supreme Court, are blatantly partisan. So where do we have democracy? Even voting. You know, we say every 2 years and every 4 years, well, voting. You know, make we feel good about that. And well, we're still a democracy. But even look at that. With the screwy primary system and the gerrymandering and the big donors and the big money, how much actual democracy is going on, even on Election Day? Certainly not in presidential voting, where a tiny sliver of primary voters choose from among a couple of candidates blessed by the party and blessed by major donors. They get there long before most of us get to vote. I mean, nobody wanted a rematch of Biden and Trump, right? But here we are. So where is democracy? Well, the citizen jury. Just the most beautiful, pure demonstration of democracy, and our last bastion. The Republicans' defiance of the jury system is a slap in the face to democracy. It's a total disrespect for democracy itself. It's a slap in the face and a total disrespect for you. That needs to be said. That's what we're seeing. It's right in front of us. And they're going to meet right over there. Just a few blocks away, they're gonna meet at Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and nominate this guy. Incredible. And then finally, I don't want to leave without saying this. I have this weird feeling. I don't know. I call it the sink-in effect, and that is maybe there's still time for the sink-in factor. In other words, is this going to finally at some point sink in to people? Part of me wants to believe that a significant number of voters will finally say, we just had enough. It finally sinks in just how rotten he is. His whole MAGA gang of thugs. I mean, how long can he get away with the same tired act? Villainizing, demonizing every opponent. He literally just called Judge Merchan this morning the devil. And if you listen to any of the right-wingers, they use the most extreme language about how the evil has to be vanquished, stuff like that. That's how they describe their opponents. So at some point, is it going to sink in to the people who matter, the regular folks on the street, you, your neighbors, that weird group of people who haven't decided who they're going to vote for yet, which I still have a very hard time picturing? At some point, is it going to sink in? Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm Charlie Brown in the football. But, maybe. Like a jury of 12 ordinary citizens has renewed my faith today. Maybe those citizens who can swing this election, those voters who have the power to swing this election, maybe they'll do it. Maybe it'll sink in. I can't take this anymore. I finally have had enough. I mean, it's only a feeling at this point. In fact, it's more like, I guess it's a wish. It's a prayer. But just maybe the disgusting rot of this filthy story, of this revolting excuse of a man, maybe it'll finally just turn the stomachs of enough Americans to finally put this shameful saga to an end once and for all. I mean, how great would that be? This sweeping mandate in November that in no uncertain terms just tosses the Orange Menace into the trash bin of history, along with all of his sycophants and the whole rotten MAGA nightmare. How great would that be? I'm holding out hope, man. I'm holding out hope. Could that be? It could be. It could be. Judge Merchan sends him off on July 11th, right from that sentencing hearing, right to his orange jumpsuit and jail and a prison haircut. And everybody just says, this is enough. This is ridiculous. And then the November election is just a total and complete landslide. How great would that be? All right. This has been a special episode of The Log because I didn't want to wait until next week to talk about the trial verdict and all of that. As always, please go to the website, charlespurcell.com, to find this episode and all episodes, or your favorite podcast platform. Find us. Reach me, charlespurcell@gmail. Follow on Facebook. Thanks to our flagship terrestrial station, River West Radio, riverwestradio.com. And thanks to Peter Donalds, who wrote and performed our theme song. There it is. Good luck, everybody. I love you. See ya.